are aware that we have just concluded a contract. I had the intention to solicit a response. You had the desire to receive my solicitation and accept my offer and reward me in return. So thank you very much. Contract Fundamentals 101 done. Thanks. Bye. Now, you're probably feeling a tad aggrieved, aren't you? You've been sitting here staring at there for the past 5 minutes and it's over in 1 minute. So you're feeling aggrieved, am I correct? You want more? Because you think you have rights and you're entitled to certain remedies because I am in breach. Am I correct? Thank you very much. Contract Fundamentals 201 done, we leave. You're still here? You're still not satisfied? So you want something in return, am I correct? But you also want to see some tricks, take some notes, am I correct? Yes. You want some tangible assets to take away. Am I your attention, ladies and gentlemen? What are the basics for a contract? What did I just do when I stepped in? I created an environment where we had consensus. It's just a fancy Latin word for a meeting of the minds. I offered something, you received it, and I then received something in return. Those are the essentialia of an agreement, ladies and gentlemen. Offer and acceptance. I give something, you receive something, and I receive something in return. A written contract document necessary. We concluded subjectively in our minds. You've heard all these law cases about subjective intent and objective interpretation. Subjectively, when our minds met, we had a contract. We had a reciprocal relationship where my rights and my expectations matched yours. I greeted you, I expected a greet in return. That happened. We had a contract. So, I state again, is a big voluminous stack of papers really necessary when you have subjective intent? Because remember, the common law governs all relationships. The Romans, very, very clever, around in their white sheets, in their marble halls, came in and thought out these things and said, listen here, we have common law. And through the Romans, through the Dutch into English, and today we have contract law. But a contract, ladies and gentlemen, is not the paper it is written on. That, ladies and gentlemen, is merely an attempt to manifest the subjective consensus in an objective form. That's all it is. But ladies and gentlemen, we need to remember that ingenuity is the spice of life. We're all human beings. That makes us all greedy. Or should I say, makes us have a massive desire for self-preservation. So we would want to get more out of a relationship than what is initially anticipated. Okay? So we want to get something that might now just upset these equal scales of equal rights and equal reciprocal obligations. And ladies and gentlemen, I need to state this and make this emphatically clear that when you are confronted with this objective manifestation of your subjective intent, there is something called caveat subscriptum. I'm bragging again with my Latin. Beware the bearer of the signature. If you have put in your signature on that document, that means you have read and understood. Caveat subscriptum. My written word is my caveat, it's my pact. Yes, you have certain things you can raise, like justus error, another Latin word I'm just throwing in for fun. But ladies and gentlemen, bear in mind, no court will ever take away or limit any individual's right to make a fool of himself. So, may the author beware, caveat subscriptum. So, what is necessary? Number one, for me, I've been doing contracts with a good part of about 15 years, from 5 million rand contracts to 5 billion rand contracts, from contracts for 6 months to contracts that after 16 years are still in effect. We have to make sure that we are fully aware of the individual we are acting with. Who are the parties? Okay? So, in South Africa, and recognized universally, you have different types of people. You have a natural person, you and I, human beings. Then you have juristic persons. Those are legal entities that are actually recognized in law and can be sued. Bear in mind as well, you might have multiple parties. You may be dealing with a government department or a division of a company, because remember, companies can own companies. So you will have a contract with company A, a division of company B, a fully owned subsidiary of company C. Be very, very sure with whom you are dealing. Now also, you as a customer, you can be multiple customers. You can represent your entire company, or you can represent as a conglomerate, or you can represent a division. And you need to state that specifically. But beware, there are certain individuals that may or may not have the authority to conclude a contract. Quickly think, who are the individuals that does not have the legal capacity to conclude a contract?
The ones who don't appear on the resolution taken from the previous minutes.
Fantastic, yes?
Yes, yeah.
Absolutely brilliant example. Gentlemen, have you ever seen ABSA, Amalgamated Banks of South Africa, Limited, listed entity? Can ABSA hold a pen? Can ABSA sign a contract? No, they can't. So there must be a duly authorized and appointed individual through the board of directors under the minutes that gives that individual the legal capacity to act. But fantastic, we've got now we've got juristic persons covered. What about natural persons? You and I. And all the chauvinistic males, do not say women, okay? They can actually vote, okay? They're allowed to have jobs and they can actually get driver's license, okay? So, I'm talking about minors, ladies and gentlemen, okay? Children do not have the capacity to act, but they can act through a curator ad litem or a curator ad bonis. Now, again, some fancy Latin terms, but what about individuals that are dead? Therefore, you have trustees. What about individuals that are sitting in Sterkfontein in those white jackets with the long sleeves and the clasps around the back in those beautiful padded rooms? They do not have mental capacity to act anymore, so they will have duly appointed representatives. And it's essential that you state it as such. And that is why your contract document ought to make provision therefore. What happens when your supplier or your service provider gets taken over or goes into liquidation? And an application comes to you, a letter comes to you, can we please transfer this to company ABC? You want the goods, you want the service, you cannot afford that not being provided. So you say, cool. And the rights and obligations are ceded to the next party. But what if that new company now supports Al-Qaeda? What if that new company now supports ISIS? Think about your company's reputational damage. So that is why it is very, very important that should there be cession or transfer, that the necessary provisos be written in there that you can veto decisions for transfer. Okay. To capture the consensus. It's called the preamble or the introduction. So, company A wants something. Company B says, I recognize that company A wants something. And I'm fully competent to give him that. Third sentence. Both parties recognizing their reciprocal rights, duties and obligations do hereby intend to conclude a contract based on the following terms and conditions. That's it. Consensus done. Clear. Remember, a contract is there to ensure that there is no ambiguity. So, you know who you're contracting with, or who the guys are contracting with one another. The second part is, you know exactly what's going to happen. I want something, he can provide it. He acknowledges that he can provide it, and I acknowledge that I want it from him, so we will have the following terms and conditions. That's your preamble. You have to record your consensus. Now, in your modern contracts, or in the new fancy LLB guys, they don't write those contracts with the recordals or the recitals anymore. But for me, if you do not have a contract document that really captures the consensus, what was the true intent of the party? Remember, you are putting subjective intent in words into an objective form, into an objective document. So, put it in there. Parties, introduction. What do you guys think is next? Have you guys come across documents where the very first little clause under interpretation goes something like this? In the case of ambiguity, this contract will be interpreted against the person who drafted it. Be aware of those contracts. Or, if you get slashed with a contract, insist that that contract is in there, or that little clause is in there. The second one is multiples and singulars, males and females, masculines and very, very important. Definitions, ladies and gentlemen. I cannot stress definitions sufficiently. Because remember, if your contract definition for a particular day, remember, in terms of the South African legislation, the Interpretations Act, it specifies what is a day. So if your day is 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365, you need to state it as such. If your working week is 7 a.m. to 3:30, Monday to Thursday, and 7 a.m. to 12:30 on a Friday, you need to state it as such. For purposes of your document, that will be day. Otherwise, in case of ambiguity, it will, number one, be interpreted in terms of the Interpretations Act, and if that fails, it will be given its objective or literal interpretation. And it's going to have severe consequences. Someone else is going to be the procurement manager. So you need to make that change. So how are those variations and the rules surrounding the variations be governed? It has to be in writing. It has to be by way of notice. Okay? Now, there's another word on there that says relaxation. Say for example, sir, you are a landlord and I need to pay you your rent by the first of each and every single month. However, the first month I pay before. The second month I pay after. Third month I pay after. The fourth month I pay after. The fifth month I pay after. Ladies and gentlemen, has this gentleman tacitly consented to the relaxation of the payment terms? Yes, he has. Unless the contract contains a clause that says, even if I'm being lenient, even if I'm being a good Samaritan, and I give you 5 extra days to pay the rent, that one day, when I urgently need the money on the 1st, and I call you on the 30th, and I tell you I want my money on the 1st, and he says, yeah, but last month I paid by the 1st. No, I want it on the 1st. No, but you created this impression that you're happy with it. I said, no, I'm not happy with it, I tolerate it. My relaxation in no way gives rise to amendment of the contract. Domicilium citandi et exucatandi. And no, I wasn't swearing in Latin. Domicilium means place where you live. Citandi, place where you will be cited for legal proceedings or correspondence. Et exucutandi is the place of residence where the sheriff of the court can actually come and serve you documents. Okay. That has to be in the contract document. Et exucutandi is a physical address. Citandi will be your postal address if you have PTYs, will be the postal address, if not amended in terms of your registration documents. What will happen if you get slapped with a document, you say, give me a couple of minutes to read it, you give me a call, I go through the document and say, listen here, you are being screwed on this document. And we start negotiating. And we sit down, and then all of a sudden you get a bill for all his legal costs. All my contracts usually says, all legal costs pertaining to the draft, the drafting, the negotiation, the conclusion, and the implementation, and the post-implementation contract management of this document shall be for the parties' own cost. What governing law will be applicable to this document? It's simple. South African law. Boom. But what if you start dealing with foreign suppliers? Do you really want to subject yourself to the laws of Mexico? Importing directly from them, but they have a South African agent. No, no, no. You will conclude your contract with a South African agent and you will make South African law applicable. Because just imagine, you're waiting for a delivery, it doesn't come, now you have to go and issue a summons. You have to go and issue a summons out of the embassy in New Mexico City, in Mexico, for your supplier that's not supplying. Meanwhile, back at Garage, you've got a South African agent who can make South African law applicable. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a new clause that I designed about 2.5 years ago. BEE South Africa, BEE in South Africa has unfortunately become a license to act. And that becomes one of the most critical and deciding factors for the procurement professional in awarding a contract. And what can happen is that the company will earmark a large chunk of its expenditure to a BEE level 1 company. Not necessarily the cheapest, but under proviso that you will, for the duration of the contract, maintain at least a level 2 BEE contribution. Again, it's optional. If the company you're contracting with that doesn't have that in, cool. But remember, your BEE certificate is dependent on your suppliers. So you want your suppliers to have a good BEE as well. I do not know how many of you are from the state-owned entities or public sector. Ethics, anti-corruption, anti-fraud, anti-theft. Be very, very sure that you do not get caught with your pants down with entities that are guilty of corrupt and fraudulent activities. In the construction industry, should you work in the mining industry? Safety is paramount. Not for your supplier's sake, for your sake. Okay. So there will be certain requirements in respect of safety as well. That being the general rules of engagement. Now move over to the subject matter. What am I offering, and what am I asking you to give, and what am I expecting to get in return? One individual is creating the impression on the one side, whereas you on the other side thinking of something completely different. Here's a question. Ladies and gentlemen, looking at that picture, do those two individuals have consensus? No, they don't. But the law does not prescribe how specific you must be in respect of the subject matter. That means it must be determined, or at least determinable. Okay? Semantics, I know, but I can take another 2 days explaining the latter. Unfortunately, we don't have that time. Do you expect the service to meet certain quality standards? What is the warranties? What will happen if the service is defective? Someone came to board at a wall and the wall collapses. So, what are the warranties? Are there certain intellectual property rights attached to the goods or the services that I'm getting? Am I protected? Remember, the IP might belong to someone completely different. You're getting You're the owner of the IP. I'm buying it from that gent. You realize he has stolen your IP. You come to me. I have just paid 50,000 bucks for that product, but it's your idea. I'm 50,000 rand out of pocket. He's the thief. He's the scallop. He's got 50 G's, and you've got what I paid for. So how do you protect when you're the recipient of IP, intellectual property? Writing the clause. If I'm going to buy that from you and that's his design, sorry, but I bought that from you. He doesn't sue me, he sues you. My hands up, please. You can all write this into contracts to protect yourself, ladies and gentlemen. Now, what will happen is, I have now bought that item, but I haven't paid for it. And neither has he. Because he bought it from this gent. Now this gent wants his money, he can't get his money. But I'm selling with a product. That means he has a lien. L-I-E-N. So he's going to rock up at my gate, take the product that I haven't paid for yet, or maybe I have, and leaves. Because my supplier hasn't paid for it. So ladies and gentlemen, be very, very careful of liens as well. Additional rights would you like to protect? If I urgently need that product, he cannot supply it. We've got a contract in place that he must supply it. He is in breach. I need that product, otherwise my machine is, my factory is going to stand. Now, in law, you are under obligation to mitigate your losses. So, I can now go to that lady and buy that product, and her product you must pay. Certain documentation that you must attach. Chances are you want rebates and discounts, or there will be penalties and retentions. So make sure that those are also fully described in the document. Now delivery. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, how many times have you phoned the supplier and the supplier says, no, but I've delivered it. He says, no, when did you deliver it? No, plot A, branch 7 in Boomstraat in Pretoria. He said, no, I'm not in Boomstraat, I'm in Shrub Street, not Boom. He said, but someone signed for it. You go to Boom Street and it's an empty lot. Stolen, ladies and gentlemen. So, but be very, very careful that you clearly specify the delivery spot, the delivery location. X marks the spot. There may be demands on time. Time is of the essence. I have to have this product at this time, at this place. So you can put in a clause that says time is of the essence. And then we have something called force majeure, ladies and gentlemen. Force majeure, big force. Floods, natural disasters, earthquakes. We all know that. It's a regular occurrence, so you can't get supply. And then very, very last, any and everything to do with delivery. Remember, possession is 9/10 of the law. When does risk pass and when does ownership pass? The fact that I have received something doesn't make me the owner. It makes me the bona fide possessor. South Africa has the abstract concept of ownership. I will only be owner once I pay for it. But I am in possession of it. That means I need to carry the risk on it, but I am not necessarily the owner of it. Now people have done wrong. What's going to happen, ladies and gentlemen? It's called breach. Now breach has 3 forms. It is poor performance, non-performance, and malperformance. Okay? That means they have delivered but defectively. Under what other instances would you like to claim breach? Except me not paying you and you not delivering. It can be that I have breached ethics. It can be that I have failed on the BEE. It can be that I am now going into liquidation and I don't exist anymore. Okay? Those are the other instances that you have to cater for your breach. Then, do you really remember that poor Oaking Procurement has spent months and months and months to select the correct supplier for you? Do you just want to walk away? Or do you want to try and salvage if it is salvageable? That means building your rules of arbitration. And if that fails, ladies and gentlemen, what are the rules for termination? Termination on notice. How long will the notice be? Will the notice be in writing? How long will that notice period be to fix a particular breach? And if that individual has failed to fix that breach, what happens then? Are there transfer assistance programs to carry the service over from one supplier to the other? Those are all the little things that need to be written in. Number one, consensus, parties, the administrative interpretative rules, the subject matter, the delivery, the breach, remedies, and termination. Ladies and gentlemen, contracts 101, electronically. Depending on the wording of the email sent and the email received, is it possible to make an inference or to make a conclusion of what the subjective intent, what the consensus was between those two individuals? Remember, now you already have a written document. What is the subjective intent behind the written document? When it comes to contracts and contract drafting like this, you first have a subjective intent and then create the objective document, the physical document. Now you have already created the physical document by sending the email and receiving the email in return. Can what is said in that document reasonably be being interpreted as being a manifestation of the subjective intent? So be careful. Does it also?
We spoke about in case of ambiguity.
Yes.
Let's say someone does sign a contract but he says, I do not understand. So it's not you that was confused. Because he said, it's on my case, I did make sure that I did the clause. You see. And now if the person that is signing the contract with you and he's your supplier, then comes and say, I did not understand that I also need to do 1, 2, 3. And you say, but it's stipulated in the contract. So what do you do in that case?
When confronted with a supplier or a customer that does not understand the English language, get an interpreter in, put him down, understand what language he speaks. So listen here, do you understand what is happening here? And have that interpreter interpret that entire document with him. And they will both sign an affidavit under a commission of oath that they have read and understand this document given by this individual that is hopefully a registered interpreter, and that I am happy and that I will abide by all the terms and conditions to that contract to which it relates. Does that answer your question? You cannot, after you have signed, say, I did not know. And if you have been given a contract by a supplier, us Umlungas want to take advantage all the time, and he does not ask, do you understand? He cannot just assume. But do not hide about it. Do not hide behind it and say, he didn't ask me if I understand.